Hello friend, welcome back to our channel KBS Technocraft. Today we are going to deep dive on HTTP trigger for Azure function. In this tutorial we are going to understand what is an HTTP trigger, what kind of methods supported by HTTP trigger like get, post, put and delete, and when to use HTTP trigger, how to create HTTP trigger functions, right? And how to secure HTTP trigger functions, right? And also, we will try to understand what are the best practices we should follow it. Okay, so first, let's understand theoretically what is an HTTP trigger. So HTTP trigger are used to invoke Azure function via HTTP request, right? So it's just act like a REST services. The difference between REST services and HTTP trigger functions are that the HTTP trigger functions are serverless, as Azure functions are serverless, right? So what kind of functionalities enables is enable function to respond to HTTP requests acting as a web API, right? What kind of method is supported? Basically, you can see all the major functions from the HTTP actions was it support. It support get, post, put and delete. Get for retrieving the data from the server, post to send the data, for create and update, put basically we use for updating in existing resource, and delete for deleting in existing resources. When to use HTTP trigger? In my previous videos I have explained about all the HTTP triggers, when to use it. Let's revisit once again. The HTTP trigger is used when you are building a application where you need a functions to be retained as a RESTful. For example, creating a webhooks which execute a certain task, integrating with third party services, right? And also real time data processing. When you are having a microservices or multiple applications which require a real time data processing, you can use Azure functions in that scenario. So now let's say how to create HTTP trigger, right? So let's understand first HTTP trigger with anonymous security, and then we'll proceed further. So what I'm going to do, that I'm going to create a open Visual Studio, right? I'm going to create new project, and then I will select Azure function. I will create new, and project name I'll give HTTP triggers with security tu- tutorials, right? And I will change this repo. Okay, and next, if you're not able to type this by looking on this screen, I will be sharing the complete GitHub detail for code access. Okay, so here I'm going to select HTTP trigger, and this one use Azure for local data in local databases uses. So if you are not aware about that, how to set up local environment for for Azure and for testing, queues and queues blob storage on local, you can refer my previous video. And then here we can see, here authorization labels are there, three different authorization label is there. Let's first try to understand anonymous, right? So when we do anonymous, we click on this. Anonymous means there is no restriction, there is no authentication authorization being implemented there. So let's try first and we will see how does it works. And then, so in this, you can see here, this authorization label is anonymous. That means anyone can access it, right? So let's first try to understand what is get, post, put, and delete kind of action are supported by Azure function. Then we will try to create a function with different level of securities like anonymous, right? APIs keys and also JWT token kind of securities where it's been implemented, right? So let's run this. So I just created by default, and it's just by default it's give me a function, right? It's a function one, and it's just writing like logger.log information and just returning this welcome to Azure function. Here I'm just adding demo just for our testing purpose. So I just added it here, and then we will run this. So when you run it, it will take few seconds and it will give you a URL where you can go ahead and use that URL as a REST API call. So it's a build succeed happen, and then we can see it's building, and then it will give you a URL. Okay, so you get a URL which support get and post, right? So I'm going to copy this. Okay, since it's the get method, you will be able to use Chrome for testing. So if I call it, you will be able to see that it's giving welcome to Azure function demo. Later part, I'm going to use Postman. So let's open the Postman because we are having get put post and delete. So for testing that, it will be good to use Postman. So I'm opening this Postman. You can download this Postman on a web. You can Google it about the Postman and you can download it. So I downloaded it, and then I'm going to paste that URL. I'm going to select get, right, and I'm going to, so you can see here I'm getting this response whatever that Azure function is returning, right? This, so this was a very simple functions which supports gets. Now let's say consider we want this function to work as a post, right? So let's remove this get, right? So it's now going to support only the post, as we have seen that is support get, put, post, and delete. So now we have restricted this function to support only post actions, right? So when I run it, and now if you try to fire as a get method, it will not return you anything. So let's say here is running here. Okay, now if you try to do that, you will not able to. So if you put method not found here, you are able to see, right? Is displaying a message 404 is not found. Let's say consider now if I put post and try to fire it, you are able to see that it's fine. So when you want a Azure function uh, to support a particular action verb or method, you have to type put. Let's say consider if I put here put, right, and save it, right, and run it, right. So now it will support a put method. So URL remains same. Now, if I try to run as a post, so you will be able to see method not found. Now, if I put as a put, then it's fine. It will show you. Similar way, let's try for delete, right? And save it and rerun it. Okay. So now we have enable only delete. So now if you pass as a delete, right, then it will give you the delete, right? So you have seen that this Azure functions in supporting get, put, post, and delete, right? Now let's do further. Let's make it get. Now let's say consider you want to pass some query string information data. How do you read it, right? So let's say consider here like this, and I will try to get, yeah, okay. Let's say I want to display here whatever query string name being passed, right? Name, right? So now I added here this. So and I changed this method to get. I stopped it and I will try to run it. When I'm running it, and if I pass a query string name, then that query string will be retrieved inside the function. So now here I use same get, and I will pass query string as a name equal to, let's say, demo, right? If I run it, you see that here it's a displaying demo. This is demo which we have appended here, so it's retrieving the information from there. Now let's say consider you want to pass as a object when you are passing as a post, executing this as a post, right? You are using post method. So let's say consider i I want to pass as a first name and last name, two object there, right? So now we have to deserialize this, deserialize it. So for deserializing, we have to, you have to read this http request, and then http request we have to deserialize into the object what you are passing, right? So let me copy a code quickly and for deserializing, and then we will proceed further, right? So let's say I just added it, and then for JSON convert I need to add the Newton JSON. So I will add dependency here. Let's stop it, and then I will add dependency here. So add manage NuGet package, and then I will add that. Okay, Newton JSON. I will install it. I will save it. It's installed. Now let's say go to the function, and we can see this NuGet is installed. Now we will start using the JSON. Right. Okay. Since we are using async, we need to change that method signature. We will change the signature as a like this public static task like this. If you are returning any response, then like this. Okay, and then here we need to return the response. So that also I will try to. I'm just trying to create a response here. Let's say, okay, so I just created a success response here, and we can see I'm trying to hello and that name, and name I will get it from there, get it from the object what we pass it, right? So request object, we need to pass it basically HTTP request data. Here we need to pass it, so that's fine. So since we are passing a, for the post method we are passing a user defined data, so we are passing. So now this is, let me explain it. So what I made it, I make it this method as a post method, and then I'm passing HTTP request data here. And in this, what I'm trying to do, that I am trying to deserialize this data, and I'm just trying to get this name. So earlier you have seen that I was passing through the query string, not from the body of the data. So now we will we will run this up. We will put a breakpoint here just for understanding and debugging purpose. I will run it, right? And once this build successfully happen, it will run it, and then okay. So same function is supposed. So same function, and it's supposed. We are not required to pass anything now. If you go on data, right, body here. So let's pass something name. You can pass it any object here. So let's say pass name, and let's say this is first name. So pass let's pass name and ID both. So let's say ID equal to 2. Let's say 2, right? So say anything you pass it as a JSON body, right? Here I am passing it here, right? Okay, now post body as a JSON. So what you will be able to see that here when I send it, so you will be able to see this name, whatever we pass as a body. So that means the data, whatever we pass, it is comes here as a body information, right? So you will be able to see this method, and then it contains the body information. If you see here, this body information contains. Then what we are doing, we are deserializing that body to a dynamic object. If you are having a type object, let's say user info, you can deserialize it, and then we are getting similar way. If you want to get that here, now if you proceed further, you will be able to see hello core. That's what we are displaying because name is passed. Let's say here test demo we are passing, then what will happen, it will give you test demo, right? So test hello test demo is the displaying it. Now let's say consider if you want ID as well, what we have to do that. Okay, right here, let's say consider id as a string. So I will make it id, and then id. Let's see that if it's the same. Okay, id. So now name, and then let's say id I will post here, right? Id, right? Like, and I will run it. Once I run it, then I will be able to test it from using postman. So it's running now. Okay, I will test it now. You will be able to see it's, it will give you both the value. If I go here, so you can see hello demo is the name and id is this, right? So what we have seen till now is that we have seen how to use get put post method for Azure function using HTTP trigger, right? I will create a new solution for implementing different kind of security mechanism. Okay, so let's create a new solution. So I am using Visual Studio and opening this. Right, I will create new. I'll create Azure function, new Azure function, and then function app. I will post security demo, something like that. Demo. I will select repo here, and then I will create next. Right now, we can use function. We can use admin. Right. So I will explain little while what is function and what is difference between function and admin. Let's say select function here. I created this. Right. So if you see here, you are when you select the function label authorization, right? It's a select is pass the parameter as a authorization label as a function. Okay. So let me explain what this authorization label function it is. Okay. So okay, so in Azure there are two. One is function level and one is admin. So function security controls who can access your HTTP trigger. When you create Azure function with HTTP trigger, you can configure function to required API key to access it. For example, whoever passed that API key in the query string or the header, they will be able to access that particular function. So this is one kind of authentication and authorization you can implement it, right? So in this is an API key based authentication authorization. So whenever a user or consumer is going to try to access that function, they will have to pass that API key. So if you see here, the authorization label, function, admin, and anonymous. Anonymous we have discussed. Anonymous we have discussed it. Function we are going to discuss in more detail. It's require a API key, right? Admin requires a master key, which may be valid for multiple functions, right? But function key is applicable for one function where for which you are defining that key or validating that key. Okay, then we will also discuss authentication, how we can use OAuth using JWT, right? So let's see the demo. Okay, so here we have implemented as a functions and it's a get post, it does not matter. So let it be get and post, right? So just to save time, I have example. What I will do, I will copy that functions just to explain both in one, right? So let me copy it and I will just paste it to this function. Okay, there will be few references which are required to be added. So I'm going to add that references. The basically the references what we require is basically three references, right? So here we need to, if you see here, we need to add basically Microsoft identity dot token and Microsoft sorry system dot identity model dot token. So let me add those references there. If I go here and then I will go to Solution Explorer and then add dependency and then I will manage new web package. So I will select browse and then identity model dot token basically, right? Okay, so identity model dot token. So identity model dot token, I need to install it, apply. Then I need a system dot identity model dot token dot jwt. All right, install it. Also, I need a Newton soft I will install it, which is required for serializing and deserializing objects. That's fine. Okay. So I hope all we added. We have added Newtonsoft. We have added identity model dot token. We have added the system dot identity model token dot JSON. So we need to add it here. Right. So this all technically it should ask me to add it. Let me add it here using, let's say, Newtonsoft dot JSON, right? And then I will add it using system dot identity model dot tokens dot JSON, JWT, then using Microsoft dot identity model dot tokens. Okay. So now the build run. Okay, so you can see here that there is no issues. What we'll do it, we will try to build this, right? Okay, I think it's a copy paste issue. We have one additional. We will, for LibreOffice is fine. We will run it. So let it build. Okay, so it's build started. Okay, okay. So it's started. Let me copy this URL and paste it here. Right, this is first. Okay, so now let's first understand the code and then we'll execute it. I will keep it running. So if you see here, it's just like a previous example what we have discussed, but here the first parameter where we have implemented authorization function level, and then we are having a only allowed a post method. We are having http request data because it's a post method, it can accept the body of the data, right? And then we are just adding this display message for logger. If you see here, we are having API check. So this is what we talk about, the first option where we are having a function kind of authorization, and second one is admin kind of authorization. So this is a function, right? Like if I go to my PPT, we will be able to see that we have three. So function where we can use API key for authorization and authentication purpose. Admin where we can use a master key for authentication and authorization purpose, right? Also with this we can also use JWT token kind of authorization mechanism or authentication mechanism as well. Okay, so let's understand here in this code. So we are what we are doing, we are before we processing that data, like reading those data, what we are doing, we are validating that check. So what we are doing it here, we are checking that particular header contains that key, right? Contains key, and what is the value of this key, right? Let's say we can give test API key, for example, test API key. I'm just giving any name just to make sure that it can be passed any predefined value. Also, we can configure that value in your configuration so that we can validate that API key whatever being passed is correct or not. Or we can have that API key in database as well so that we can read from database and come validate it. So if in this case, let's say first we are running, this is post method, we are passing this name and test, that is fine. Okay, and then when we are sending, if you see the header, it does not contains any API key. Also in query string, it does not contains any API key. So if I send this request and put a breakpoint here, right? Let's say put breakpoint here. Okay, you will be able to see that once request comes here, it will be trying to validate that key, and if a key is not there, it will throw unauthorized exceptions. So we have sent it, so now it comes here. Now it will try to see does it contains this API key or not, right? So if it contains, then only, otherwise it will be throw unauthorized. So since this case we are not passing anything, so what will happen, it will come here, it will return the response as a unauthorized. So if you see here, you are able to get unauthorized exception, right? Let's say first we can pass multiple way. So let's say I am passing API key equal to, and then whatever API key I have right here is a test API key. So let me pass it here, right? Now if I run it, you will be able to see it comes here. Since it contains the value, this headers that get value, it will contain value, it will go f. Okay, it's a query string, right? So it's still it does not contain, let's say put in header. Okay, so I pass as a query string because I am validating against the header information, so I can put it here, header, and key is this, and value is this. Okay, value is this, right? And this does not require because I am not validating against query string, so that's fine. And now if I send it, right, let send it. Now you will be able to see that is a pass. It does not, now it will come here and it will return the result. Since I have implemented here JWT authorization also, it will not work. Let me come comment that. We will go one by one, and then this is for OAuth. So let me comment this for time being, and we will implement only the function authentication authorization. So this is for JWT, so that I'm not that I have not enabled as of now. So only the API key based authentication authorization we have enabled for function level. Okay, so now correct. I am just going to run it, right? It will validate here and it will come here, right? Right, so you can come see here, and it will return here, right? So you can see hello test demo because the name what we are passing in here, this is, let's say I am passing that final demo and I'm sending it, it will go there and it will display, right? So this is one. Now if you want to enable that JWT kind of authentication authorization, you have to write the code like this way, and also you can have a configuration file where you can have your audience issuer audience is your information in your configuration, and you can validate against that, right? So basically, your valid issuer, your valid audience, and your valid security keys, which you can validate in that JWT token, whether that JWT token which coming from the request is there or not. So whenever you are using JWT token, you will be passing as a authorization bearer token here, right? So what we are doing it, we are just removing bearer, we are just getting the token, and then what we are doing it, we are validating that token here. This is where validating the token to make sure that whatever allowed issuer and audience are there, it's there in the token. And then if it's not there, then it will throw the exception. If it's there, then it will be proceeding side. So I hope I have tried to explain what is function and what is JWT based authentication authorization is there. Similar way, when you are selecting admin, you will be having a admin type of key which will allow you to authenticate and authorize on that level. So that's all for today. If you like what you see, please don't forget to like and subscribe.